Assalamu alaikum, loves readers and viewers. I hope you're doing well. The country basically is gearing up for the upcoming elections, and everyone is focused on the fundamental question that is dominating debate in Pakistan. Will the elections take place on time or not? If you were to go by what I observe and what my assessments are, I would say that we are fairly okay in terms of being on the right track as far as the elections are concerned. Now, having said that it's a right track, that doesn't mean that it's going to be a smooth track. My own sense is that it's going to be a fairly bumpy, rocky kind of a ride to the elections. There are various reasons for that. Number one, I do not see, despite the fact that I believe that we are well on track towards the elections, a consensus emerge within the mainstream political parties, both inside the parliament as well as outside, as to what will be the mechanism through which many an issue will be sorted out, starting from delimitation of the constituencies in Karachi, to the nature of the election commission, to the nature of the caretaker setup, to whether the governors will be removed in time or not, development funds will be disbursed or not, and a wide range of issues, including also, if you were to throw that in, the role of the armed forces, how they will be supervising the elections. The reason there is no mechanism in place is that every party right now believes that they still have time on their sides. They believe that they can still jockey for some more advantage and bring it very close to the election date, and then they will announce the caretaker setup. This has already subverted the possibility of smooth kind of an interaction through dialogue, under which not just the parliament parties that are in the parliament are part of the process, but also forces that have emerged outside of the system, such as PTI and Jamaat Islami, sitting outside the system. They could also be incorporated. Now, this could really be a race against time now, that these issues are piling up and there is no mechanism in place. So, I see this to be a big stumbling block on the smooth transition towards the process of elections. The other is the all pervasive and often neglected issue of violence. Karachi continues to bleed. Balochistan, because of very maverick and strange kind of quirks of bad decisions and poor implementation, has become a wreck of a province in terms of violence as well as constitutional implementation. The governor's rule has been imposed. The assembly continues to question the governor's rule. The chief minister refuses to be the non-chief minister, as it were, who has been suspended, insists that he still is the man in charge, and nobody is paying attention to that. In the meanwhile, IEDs continue to explode, levies continue to be attacked, and terrorism continues to lurk in the backdrop, sometimes leading into spectacular attacks of the sort that we saw against the Hazaras. KPK is another violence infested area. This does not make big news in Pakistan, unfortunately, but for those who have to organize political rallies and corner meetings at the neighborhood level, at the Gali Mohalla level as we call it, at the Union Council level, they really worry about that. A bomb exploding here and a school getting demolished over there is going to send ripples of fear across the landscape, and people are not going to come out. So if the people don't come out because of fear factor, what sort of electioneering will there be? Will it affect the voting pattern or not? So violence, and I'm not talking about sort of more generic and a mega scale violence in the shape of attacks on Pakistan's strategic assets and what you may have. I'm talking about violence that is going to be spreading quiet but very definitive fear in the minds of the electorate. So that's the second factor. And the third factor is what I call the titanic battle of the institutions. Nobody really openly talks about it, but the battle is still going on. NAB chairman's letter to the president, the resignation letter, is less of a resignation letter and more of a letter of the sort that was written previously under General Pervez Musharraf against the Chief Justice of Pakistan, the letter by famous Mr. Naeem Bukhari. It's amazing how a retired admiral whose appointment to NAB is generally believed to have been caused by none other than Riaz Malik, or Riaz Thekedar as he's known, seems to have suddenly discovered a love for democracy and has begun to hector and lecture on the virtues of the system. But such is life in Pakistan. So if you were to read the letter, it is very clear that this letter takes a pot shot at the judiciary and makes it look like the bad boy among all the other state actors. The letter gives a clean sheet of health to the army, says that they want the people's mandate to be implemented, then immediately moves on to the Supreme Court suggesting that they are coercing NAB and him personally to somehow subvert the people's mandate. I fail to see the connection, but that's what the letter says. So that's one side of the battle. The other is that the judiciary still is not sure how it will coexist with the armed forces of Pakistan when it comes to holding free and fair elections. Now, holding free and fair elections are going to be impossible if all the major state institutions become stakeholders in getting this process going. And when I say that, of course, the political class is there, the judiciary also has to be there, and the army also has to be there. And the election commission has to have the faith and the backing of all these actors. Without that, I don't see that kind of institutional support base being put into place. So these are the three main factors that presage a rather bumpy ride to elections. But because there is no other option other than election to somehow break this interlocking stalemate in Pakistan, of course, coup is out of the question. A radical reformer descending from the heavens, of course, was never a hope, has become an even more diminished hope, mere illusion after what we saw in case of Dr. Tahir Qadri's circus in Islamabad. So basically, it's a very narrow kind of a pipeline through which you have to pass in order to get through this troubled phase. And this narrow path itself is hobbled by many problems. So the sagacity of the political class and the camaraderie among the state institutions are going to determine how smooth this transition is going to be.